Hello and welcome to the focus day of mission, prayer, and giving. I am delighted to be with you. We are going to have such a great time. My name is Callan Zarin, and it's my joy to serve Jesus as a regional director in the South area. So we're going to take a deep dive into what is Focus's mission? How do we live it? And how can you become more a part of it? We're going to do that through stories. We're going to hear powerful testimonies from Focus students, missionaries, as well as the Focus leadership. We also deeply desire to pray with you. So tomorrow we're having a live broad stream at 11:30 a.m. of the rosary. It'll be at Mountain Time, and that will be followed afterwards by a noon mass that's also live streamed, also at Mountain Time. We want you to bring the needs that you have to God and to lift them up in prayer. And we've actually committed here at the Denver Support Center, all of our Focus staff, to praying for your intentions for the next 30 days. It's just an honor for us to be able to intercede for you and the needs that you have. So our first story today is going to come from the Stoll family. Patrick and Kaylee were invited to SLS 2018, their first Focus conference, and they had no idea what God wanted to do in their life when they headed out to that conference. They encountered Jesus in a powerful way during the night of adoration, and because of this, they actually returned back into the wholeness of the Catholic faith, and they committed their lives to serving Jesus and to being in leadership and working for Focus to serve his beloved church. We're so excited for you to hear from them.
Once the main speaker started talking, they had said some Christian things that I was familiar with, but they really was this transition towards adoration's coming, Jesus is going to be here, adoration's coming, Jesus is going to be here. But I never understood what that actually meant because I had never experienced anything like that before.
At this time, the altar is going to be prepared for adoration, waiting to receive Jesus.
All of a sudden, everything just changed. We saw everybody get on their knees, so we started to kneel as well.
People started praying, and I looked around and realized I should probably do the same, just out of respect, or maybe something was gonna happen in my life that night.
It was really breathtaking. I think that really started to spark a lot of our conversation, what just happened, what is this, and how can we be a part of it?
That was the first time that I started to really think and pray through, this has to be true. This has to actually be Jesus here. And that was the first time that I had ever really even considered something like that.
I was born and raised Catholic. We went to church every Sunday, and my mom was always involved in the church, but I just never felt a connection to it. I didn't understand it. I also didn't take the time to understand it. And in high school, I really stepped away from any type of faith at all. And then my freshman year of college, I had a really hard year. A lot of things happened that made me feel really lonely and really isolated. And so I went on a retreat and found Jesus again and started to really pursue that in my life. And I got involved in a Protestant ministry right away to try and build my relationship with Jesus. And that's where I met Patrick. We got a really good foundation, got married, and did campus ministry for a long time.
But after a few years being on staff, it was starting to really just question and wonder, there's got to be something more to this. And had never really been involved or done anything Catholic.
I know at one point I was I know I love Jesus, and that's what I'm gonna build everything upon. And that's right around the time that we were invited to SLS 18.
I want to transform your life in so many ways.
Jesus is our rabbi. You're made to belong to Jesus.
You are never alone.
I came back from that conference wanting to change everything. Seeing other amazing Catholic men living out their faith naturally, like that's what had me asking questions. What aspects of my life need to change and reflect all of who God is, all of who Christ is, and lead my family towards Him ultimately. All those focused missionaries that I encountered after SLS 18, they dedicated and spent their time investing in us. And every single one of those individuals, I know years from now, we will still be a community of people together.
Because of our encounter at the SLS conference, I knew I wanted to help others experience that joy and love in their lives as well. So now my current position is on the marketing team with Focus, and as I get to do that kind of work for Focus, I really feel like our story means something. I get to take something that really changed us and help others experience that.
What an incredible story. It's amazing the impact that one single invitation can have. The invitation to go to SLS 18 transformed Kaylee and Patrick and their family, and then a multitude of other souls as they came to serve full-time with Focus. We are so grateful for the gift of their story. It makes me think about Andrew inviting his brother Peter to come and see Jesus, and that encounter would change the whole world. Here at Focus, we believe in the power of that one single invitation to meet Jesus. Our next speaker, I'm so excited for, Bill Mumma. He is the chairman of the Focus Board of Directors and CEO and board chairman of the Becket Fund for Religious Liberties. We are so privileged to have him serve with us as a volunteer since 2011. So grateful for his help and for his wisdom. He wants to share with you why he believes in Focus and why he wants other people to support this mission.
You know, when I was getting ready to film, I was wondering, why would anyone watch this instead of a HGTV home renovation show? And of course, the answer is you're interested in the work of Focus, like my wife, Kathy, and I. And when I think of it, I always think there are three reasons: a good reason, a better reason, and a best reason to be interested in Focus. So the good reason is we love our families, we love our children. For religious people, for Catholics, our number one priority is to pass on the faith. And no matter what we do as parents, we know that, in fact, it's those years between 18 and 22 that are really the most significant years when children become adults and make those critical decisions about what they believe. And unfortunately, the way our world is structured, they spend those years in college. And there they're surrounded by, at best, frivolity and at worst, corruption. And I think, unfortunately, what we see is often these college students begin to see the Catholic faith of their parents as like a private religion, something that their parents conduct at home, but which has very little relevance for the wider world. And I think, sadly, it's worse than that. One thing that I've learned from my years at the Becket Fund in fighting for religious freedom across many venues, but that the absence of religion on college campuses is not an accident. It's actually something that's been engineered. In the Becket Fund's caseload, we regularly have cases where we challenge universities that have gone out of their way to push religion out of their campuses. And it's this desolation, this frivolity, this corruption, this absence of religion on campus that we often see cited by parents and grandparents for the reason why their children have fallen away from the faith. And that, I think, draws many people to look at Focus and to wonder whether Focus is a solution to this college problem. And I think Focus is a solution. It's maybe the solution. I mean, one of the main pillars of Focus's work is to ensure that college is actually a location where young people encounter Jesus Christ on campus. And that's done in the Focus way. with authentic friendship, person to person, the way Christ taught us. So the good reason to be here is that we love our families. And C.S. Lewis pointed out that love of family is that essential first step away from excessive self-love. So good reason, better reason, best reason. And if the good reason is love of family, what's the better reason? I think it's love of country. So I think we all love our country, but the question most Americans of religious faith may be asking themselves is, does our country love God? And I think many Focus supporters probably feel the way I do. We watch with great concern as our country moves away from religion and even away from morality, moving towards some kind of strange, secularized utopia. From my vantage point of the Becket Fund, I see this dynamic as being driven by the law. For over 50 years, the courts have been reinventing the First Amendment, changing it from freedom of religion to freedom from religion. And you can see the process at work over the decades. So court decisions will aggressively remove religion from public institutions or public spaces. But then these restrictions are imitated by private institutions. And it's universities, the campus, where we see the very best example. So court actions that have restricted or blocked public universities from allowing religious activity on campus, and then we see private universities really doing the same thing, even though that's not the requirement of the courts. So the private imitates the public. And in fact, this is the dynamic across society. What takes place in a court-mandated public arena moves to private institutions, moves to cultural institutions, moves to the corporate world, and eventually we see it pervades our entire society. And by the time it's moved to that societal or cultural level, it seems really beyond our ability as humans to change it. We seem trapped in that. But in fact, we're not. And Focus is the solution to this. Because Focus is mobilizing these young alumni to encounter this broken culture, to use our faith in Jesus Christ to transform our society. And this is Focus's strategy. It's 3-word strategy: win, build, and send. Win disciples on campus, build them into great missionary leaders, send them out as alumni into the world to change the world, to bring Christ to the world. So that's Focus's goal. We have a good reason, we love our families. A better reason, we love our country. And that's a great, exciting opportunity. But the question that I think donors and supporters have to ask is, does it work? So Focus insists it's going to change the culture by spiritual multiplication, and that it's going to chase away desolation from the land by making missionaries. Now, spiritual multiplication works. We know that works. 2 disciples find 4, 4 find 8, 8 find 16. Within a decade, you're talking about tens of thousands. Within another decade, you can talk about millions. And certainly Focus is at that 10,000s of stage after 20 years since its founding. So the question is not, does it work? It has worked. The question is, can it continue to work? Now, I think like a lot of supporters, when I first looked at Focus, I loved the idea, but I wondered whether it could work, because it's the curse of nonprofits. That goes something like this. They have a really great idea. They have great founders. They have great zeal. They hire good people. They raise a lot of money. They get to work. And then they do it all over again. What's missing is any ability, any step to assess their activity, decide whether it works, eliminate what fails, go with what succeeds. So when I joined the Focus Board years ago, that's what really stunned me. In all my years of business, not just in nonprofit life, I've never seen an organization that's so effective in its execution as Focus. And the secrets for their success, well, first of all, this is an evangelizing organization, and so it's not surprising that at the core of its success is a zeal, a commitment to evangelization. Not just on campus. This is not a marketing organization with a target market, college students. This is an evangelizing organization. So you'll see it in the staff and the leadership and the way they treat their supporters and donors. Every one of us that encounters Focus is hoping for and receives an introduction to the Holy Spirit. So that's obviously the foundation. What goes on top of that? Focus has great leadership. The founding leadership's superb. They've done a tremendous job building the ranks. So that the up-and-coming leadership, excellent. And that leadership is essential. And third, and this is as a business person, extraordinary. When I joined the board, I saw how they managed exponential growth, which meant they didn't just focus on the problems at hand today or the ones they thought might happen tomorrow. Instead, they looked way ahead on that exponential growth curve. They imagined what type of problems I might have at that stage, and they began working on solutions in the here and now. It's excellent. And finally, uncharacteristic of nonprofits, they were very data-driven, and they used that data to really craft their execution. It's a very well-run organization. So they have great zeal, they have great management, they have great execution practices, they stick to their mission. So I have great confidence that Focus will see this next decade a continuation of that spiritual multiplication, that exponential growth that's been so impressive. So the good reason to support Focus is we love our families, and the better reason is we love our country. But what's the best reason? I don't think it's any surprise. It's because we love God. So I'm a convert, raised with no religion at all, and my conversion has been slow, painfully slow. I think of it like a turtle crawling backwards. And I've learned something. Essentially, I've learned that I cannot construct my own faith. None of us can. It's a gift. It's a gift from Christ. It's a gift from God. And the thing about a gift is a gift has no price, so we don't pay for it, but gifts merit a response. And so really the question is, what's the right response from the gift? And in my way, I think of two passages. First, Matthew 22:37. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And then again from Matthew 28:19. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always to the close of the age. So my wife and I support Focus because God gave us a gift and asked only that we share that gift with others. Not as self-help, not to protect our family and not to restore our country, but those are consequences of the gift, and we're appreciative of them. But the response is because God gave us his love, and we want to share that love with everyone. Focus does that superbly. They do that effectively. They do that in a well-managed way, and they do that with full love for God. And so I think Focus stands poised for a decade of exponential growth, decades of growth. I think they stand ready to transform the world, and my wife and I remain committed supporters, and we invite all of you to join that group. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Focus.
There's so many things that I'm grateful for, but one of the things that just comes to mind is the fact that from all time, Jesus planned that Focus would exist, that it would be possible that I could live a life in which it's dedicated to prayer and to loving others. And that throughout all of that, there would be so much joy and so much community, that I would be a part of an organization that saw me for who I truly am as a child of God, and that was the thing that they cared the most about. Like, Focus itself is a bit of a miracle to me, because it's crazy that the Lord wants to reach my heart and wants to reach the hearts of others by allowing us to really have a crazy and wild and incredibly exciting adventure. I thought I was going to be a Focus missionary for a pretty long time. At least after my first year of being a missionary, I was like, I'm not really sure how I won't continue doing this. But the Lord has led me to the seminary, and that is a direct result of me saying yes to Focus. Potentially becoming a priest means being a part of the head of the body of Christ and having a special intimacy with the Lord that is such a beautiful vocation. Focus opened my eyes to the beauty of that vocation through the priests that are involved with them, the chaplains on campus, and the Focus chaplains themselves. And the experience of Focus and growing in intimacy with the Lord moved my heart to want to be able to step in that direction. It's like this little call, or this littler call, was a part of God's plan of leading me to an even greater call of vocation in the way that He wants me to be a father. So that's really what the yes of Focus has meant in my life.
We could not be more thankful for people like Bill Mumma who believe in the work that Focus is doing. And I actually want to take a moment just to acknowledge you and say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for believing in us, and thank you for supporting the work that we're doing. Truly, we couldn't do it without you, and it's a joy to be on mission together. I love the question that Bill posed near the end. What is the response to the gift that I have been given? The response to God's love for me. I think that's something that I want to walk away with today and ponder. What's my response? I loved that afterwards we got to hear Bryant's testimony and the way that he chose to respond to the gift of God's love by entering into seminary and discerning being a priest. I know here at Focus we were so sad to lose him on staff because he's so wonderful, but it's amazing that he'll bring the experience of being a full-time missionary into his priesthood, into his spiritual fatherhood. So it's such a blessing, such a win for the kingdom. Next, we'll get to hear from one of my favorite speakers, Monsignor Shea. He serves currently as the president of the University of Mary. We've been tremendously blessed here at Focus to be able to collaborate with him and just look to him within our leadership. He got to recently speak to a number of our Focus family and share with them his thoughts on why Focus. This talk was so transformational that we wanted you to be able to hear it as well. Take a look.
Thanks a lot. I'm not the youngest college president in America anymore, but I was for a decade. And when the decision was made to name me as president at 34, it was unexpected, mostly for me. I was unqualified in every single way for that work. I had never raised money before. I had never run an academic institution. I don't have a terminal degree. I had never run a budget of more than $55,000 as a small-town pastor and a chaplain at a Catholic high school. University of Mary at that time, I think, had an annual budget of $57 million. It was a criminal act to name me as president. I say it was a clerical error. But I didn't know the hearts and minds of young people. And I said to the board, I don't know how to do any of this, but I do know that if this happens, my concentration, my efforts will be in Catholic identity and the transformation of the minds and hearts of young people. Now, sometimes you can say something and talk about it up front, but when the rubber hits the road, that's when things begin to change. That's when it gets challenging. And early on in my prayer, it came to me very clearly that one of the things that I needed to do was to invite the Fellowship of Catholic University students onto campus. That was something that was so clear in my prayer. But then what happened next was very notable. Ferocious spiritual warfare arose. It was very clear, and it was unexpected. There were people for whom that decision was anathema. Members of the board, also members of my faculty. And there was just a tremendous amount of resistance, and I was surprised by it. Why would anybody be afraid of this organization? Why would this be such a big deal to bring Focus onto campus? And so we came together, and I wanted to hear the perspective of people. And I listened, and none of the things that I was hearing made any sense to me. There was a whole lot of fear, and I paid attention to that because I know that fear is not a reliable counselor. At a certain point, I remember in that meeting, someone stood up and said to me, "Who makes this decision in the end? Who's going to make this decision?" And I said, I am, because you hired a president, not a general manager. So it's my call. I'm happy to have listened to you. But now we're going forward, and I expect your full support. That was a tremendous watershed moment for me in spiritual discernment. And it was an important lesson in leadership, too. And it transformed my capacity to lead and the trajectory of the university that I care for before Focus even stepped on campus. But then when Focus did arrive, all kinds of things began to happen. And that's because even from the first time that the idea came into my mind in prayer, God was on the move. God was on the move. In the spiritual warfare, he was sending a clear signal. And when Focus arrived, the sweetness of Christ suffused the campus. The arrival of Focus on the campus of the University of Mary coincided with and significantly supported a complete renewal of our Catholic identity. Our Catholic Studies program quickly became the fastest growing program of its kind in the whole country. We went from having just a handful of people at Mass, just a few people, to having standing room only. We had to add Masses. Students were requesting that we add a 7 a.m. Mass on a Friday morning. Confession lines became long. Our 600-seat chapel, we would have confession lines from the back of it all the way to the back door and then down the corridor into our business school. 3 priests hearing confessions before the 8 p.m. Mass on Sunday from 6:30 until after Mass began. And that's not what you're thinking, that the sin went way up. No. The sin was going down and confessions were going up. And that's a sign of spiritual health. Adoration and Bible studies, all kinds of things began to happen as the sweetness of Christ suffused our campus. The effects, I think, were threefold for us, at least threefold, although many other things happened. First of all, the students who came to us who already had the gift of faith learned how to spread their faith, how to witness to it. They went from being disciples to being true missionaries. So many of them came and they had been given the gift of faith. They had been raised as Catholics, and yet they were scared. Or others weren't scared, but they stomped around like little Napoleons, hitting people over the head with the hammer of truth. And they didn't know how to spread the faith in a joyful, winsome way. They didn't know how to witness to the fact that life with God is the best thing possible for a human being upon this earth. And they learned that from the Focus missionaries. And the Focus missionaries helped them, and there was a joyfulness and an effervescence which took hold of them, those who already had the gift of faith. And then there were many who did not have the gift of faith and who have come alive to Jesus Christ, to his grace, his forgiveness, his mercy, and the transforming power of his life because of Focus. I struggled here to think of which example I would give you because there are so many, but I think of a young woman who came to us from Indiana. Her name was Julia, and she came because she wanted to be on our NCAA swimming and diving team, and she wanted to study nursing, and we've got the #1 nursing program in America. And so she came, but she had no faith at all. Both of her parents had been raised Catholic. And unbeknownst to me, and maybe even to her, it was a profound heartbreak for her grandparents that her parents had lost their faith and were raising their children with no faith at all. This is a hard time. It's a hard time for us to hand on the baton. Anybody who's been a priest for 5 minutes has met with people who are so heartbroken and full of shame. They say, what happened to my kids and to my grandkids? We did everything that our parents did for us. We taught our kids how to pray. We sent them to Catholic schools. We got them their sacraments. And yet they're gone. We did everything our parents did. What did we do wrong? Well, the wind is blowing strong in the age in which we live. But Julia met a varsity Catholic missionary from Focus in her work on our swim team. And she met Jesus through that missionary. And her life was completely changed. The way she spent her weekends, the way that she constructed and invested in her friendships. And she came to the sacraments. She went through RCIA. She became a Catholic. And then she evangelized her parents and her 2 younger siblings. Her parents came back to the church, and her dad then evangelized his brothers, 2 of them, who also had left the church. At her graduation last April, her grandparents came up to me and said, "Thank you so much. This university and Varsity Catholic have given us back our family. Have given us back our family." That's the second impact that Focus has had on my campus. So many souls that had not been given the gift of faith, that came to play sports or for some academic program or because they got a big old scholarship, they came alive to God because of the presence of Focus on our campus. And the last one, everybody, is vocations. It's been my desire for so long for my campus to be a wellspring of vocations for the church. That should be actually the gift and the duty and the responsibility of every Catholic university. Now I can say from our campus at the University of Mary, there's a steady stream of young men entering the priesthood. Seminarians for dioceses all over this country, probably for your diocese, I wouldn't be surprised. Young women entering religious life, the handmaids of the heart of Jesus, the Dominicans, the Benedictine Oblates, the Carmelites, the Sisters of Life, you name it. And lastly, beautiful marriages, beautiful Christian marriages, in a time in which marriage is so demeaned, approached with such casual inaptitude. On our campus, we have young people meeting in Christ, the highest-hearted possible young people, and they pledge their lives to each other and set out in this culture to build a Christian family. It's an amazing thing. I was at a wedding last year. My brother, who's a priest, he was the chaplain for 4 years at the University of Mary. My younger brother had the wedding, and I can celebrate it, and my brother preached a great homily, but he was not the best speaker at that wedding. Because later on that night, at the supper, the groom stood up, and surrounding him were all kinds of his friends, people who really he had come to love in his Focus Bible study. Incredible. And he said this, "Thanks for coming, everybody. All day long, people have been saying how beautiful it is that my new wife and I love each other so very much. But that's not true. We don't love each other nearly enough, and we know it. That's why we needed to get married. That's why we needed the grace of this sacrament." Those are the kinds of vocational transformations that are happening on our campus. So I'm a reporter from the front in that respect. I want to tell you how it is out there. It's tough, but there's great cause for hope. Now, for the last 5 years, I've served on the board of directors for Focus as well. Boy, are we an impressive group of people. We are the best looking and smartest board that you've ever come across in the history of the world. But it's not just the board members. I know the leadership of Focus as well, people like Curtis and Craig and John Zimmer and John Flynn and so many others. There's a lot of integrity there. There's a deep commitment to stewardship and to continual improvement. They don't waste money, and they're always trying to shepherd the gifts that they've been given better. There's a deep strategy behind everything that Focus does. They know, and we all know, that unless we bring young people to faith with clarity and conviction, nothing else that the church does matters at all. None of our parishes or schools or universities or hospitals or charities, none of them matter if we can't pass it along. And Focus is sure in who they are, and they are restless in what they do. And that's my kind of organization. They're sure in who they are, but they're so restless, it's like opening up the Acts of the Apostles. It's an amazing apostolate focus. And that's why I'm a donor. That's why I myself invest in focus. C.S. Lewis said that people talk about the church as being so old because it's been around for a couple thousand years. He said that's not the right way to think about it. 2,000 years isn't very long. He said, we're just getting going. The church is in its infancy. We're just at the beginning, and all of the pain and wickedness that we experience, all the division, those are just growing pains. Those are just birthing pains. That's all that is. No, we're just getting going. And focus is a great vehicle to take us to the next place. That's why I'm in partnership with Focus, because I want to be in at the ground level in the first public offering of this deal. It's really important to me. Archbishop Gomez said last night that we find ourselves in an age, I'm almost done, they're panicking in the back. Archbishop Gomez said, we find ourselves in an age of de-Christianization, in which the elite leaders of our society are trying to erase the Christian influence from human life and from our culture. And that's true. We are in a movement from a Christendom age to an apostolic age. This is a time in which there's a lot of gravity, in which we have to be smart and faithful. But it does us no good to wring our hands and to panic. No, because these are great times. Because Christianity was made for a suffering humanity. When things are going well, we kind of blend in. But when things are not going well, in times of plague and rumors of war and division, violence, in bad times, that's when we're meant to show up. That's when we're meant to burn all the more brightly and rally to the heart of Christ. And so we find ourselves in the most hopeful time that we can imagine. And at the end of our lives, when the fever of life is over and when we close our eyes in death and open them again to see the love which brought us into being, when we give an account of our lives, how we've used our gifts, on that day, when we are gazed upon by the mercy of God, I think the saints will come running for us to hear what it was like to be down here just now, in the trenches, in this hour for which we were created and to which we were called. I sometimes wonder whether there will be thank you lines in heaven. I hope there are. And if they are the line of my friend Curtis Martin, his line will be one of the longest. And I'll be there. I shall wait my turn. Thank you for your support of Focus.
So as a missionary, we have the opportunity to go out onto campus and just to meet new people. And there's one specific instance where, I met this kid in the first kind of week of school, and I invited him to just have a coffee with me. And we went to the Starbucks, we all talked about all of these things, and eventually he started coming around to Mass. And all of a sudden he started coming to daily Mass. It was through kind of that simple invitation to this guy that the Lord kind of revealed himself to him. Over the course of that semester, this student really started to dive deeply into kind of who is God. I believe that he exists, but I don't know who he is. And so over the course of that first year that he had on campus, he really was like diving into those questions. Came back the next year and he had decided he wanted to start RCIA, and he wanted to become Catholic. And I think that was one of the most solid moments where I was able to see that the Lord is using me on campus in ways that I don't even recognize. To me, that was just an encounter. I said hi to a student, invited him to coffee, didn't know what was going to happen, but the Lord was able to use that in a way that was far exceeding any of my expectations or anything that I could ever dream of. And I firmly believe it's because the Lord knows each of his children so personally. Now he is a confirmed Catholic, still maintains his practice of going to daily Mass, and has a very deep and intimate relationship with the Lord. And that's just been very beautiful to see.
Well, now you can get a taste for why Monsignor Shea is one of my favorite speakers. So captivating. I love his take on why focus. And I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be behind him in line in heaven, waiting to shake Curtis Martin's hand and thank him. My time on staff as a Focus missionary has changed my whole life. I love that you got to hear from Nick and what it was like for him to serve as a Focus missionary and how the Lord worked in his life through his time on staff. I'd love to remind you that tomorrow we'll have the rosary live streamed at 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time, followed by noon Mass. And finally, you will get to hear now from our CEO and our founder, Curtis Martin. I can't wait for you to hear what he has in store for you. Again, it's been a joy to be with you. Thank you for joining us on mission. Thank you for your support. We love you, and we'll be praying for you.
Hello, I'm Curtis Martin, the founder of Focus. Thank you for your interest in the day of prayer and mission. I wanted to start with a thought from Jesus in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14. He says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid." This is true for you and for me individually, but it's also true for us corporately. And I want to start by saying you're so important to us. Your decision to come on mission with us, to be engaged in the day of mission, is a tremendous blessing. You know, we have an interesting vantage point within Focus. We can see the darkness of the culture, and you can also see the darkness on the college campus. But because of your involvement in mission, you can also see the light that's shining forth, starting with just a few dozen years ago, and then hundreds, and then thousands, and now tens of thousands of people being impacted on a regular basis is absolutely extraordinary. You're very, very important to us. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. Let me give you an example from just today. I was in a conversation earlier today, and we were holding an event on one of our campuses, and we gathered a group of people from different denominations and different groups in hopes to be able to share together the work of bringing people to Christ. One of the evangelical leaders was there and developed a friendship with one of our staff members. In the next few weeks, he said, you know, there's somebody I'm working with who's very interested in Catholicism, and because of the trust he developed in our staff member, our team director, he introduced this young man to our team director. This past Easter, that young man entered the church, and our team director was his sponsor. These stories are not possible without you. I'm so grateful for all that you do through your prayer and through your sacrificial giving. I want to invite you to join us in prayer tomorrow. We're going to be gathered in a unique way, thousands of prayer requests, hundreds and hundreds of people praying, and I'd love for you to go use this very page to give us your prayer requests. We'd like to be praying for you. And those prayer requests will then be on the altar for the entire month here at the Focus headquarters. It's a tremendous delight. You know, this coming school year is the last of our Run So As to Win campaign. It's been an amazing progress. We started with about 125 campuses, and by the end of the campaign, we hope to be at 250. We're already right at 200. It's been amazing to see. And I want to talk to you about the amazing growth, because the new campuses and new venues are just one of 5 ways that we're growing. We found that we can grow not only in the United States, we're adding international campuses, and we have a fast-growing parish outreach. And then our digital work is exploding. So more and more venues all the time. Already, if you counted venues, we're well over 300 venues at the present moment. It's exciting to see, though, beyond that, we believe that we can reach more people at each of the venues. So you could imagine your alma mater, and we're working with 500 students. What if we could work with 1,500 students? And so we're busy working to reach more people. We're also looking for depth of formation. We publish Foundations in Discipleship, and it's been very exciting. It's really become a very good seller. I was on a call with some priests this morning. They said, this is really all you need. This and a Bible. Makes conversation super, super simple and leads people to a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ on a regular basis. Some more venues, more people per venue, deeper formation of the people we're working with. And then also what I'd like to call the fine wine aspect of our growth. And that is, even if we stopped serving campuses tomorrow, the impact would continue to ripple, because the young leaders have been reached who are following Christ are just growing in their impact and their positions within the culture, both within the church and out in the secular world. It's amazing to see. It takes a while to acquire leadership roles in many places in our culture. I think of one of the priests that was with us. He was a student for 3 years. He was a missionary for 4. He was a seminarian for 6. That's 17 years before he was a priest. And then he was an associate vicar. And then he became a pastor. and he's having a massive impact now as the pastor. And then finally, the fifth way of growing. We hope to grow stronger as we run through this campaign. We want to run so as to win. We believe at the end we need to not only be successful, but also not be exhausted. And I'm excited to say that we have a $775,000 matching grant associated with the Day of Mission. And so while your prayers are the most important thing, your financial assistance is also critically important. Together, by the grace of Christ, we can reach tens of thousands, and over time, hundreds of thousands, and God willing, even millions. Your prayers, your support will make a difference. Together, let's pray that God allows us to go set the world on fire. Thank you, and God bless.